The sound of a body hitting the ground made Thomas stop at the entrance to the garden. His wife Helena was standing there, her impeccable white dress contrasting with the green grass. At her feet, a black girl of about 12 was trying to get up, her knee bleeding. And beside her, Daniel, his 9-year-old son, his wheelchair overturned, his face pale with fear. What is going on here? Thomas's voice came out louder than he intended. Helena turned to him with wide eyes, a hand to her chest. Thomas. Thank God you're here. This girl, she was hurting Daniel. The girl lifted her face. There was dirt stuck to her cheek and tears streaming down, but her brown eyes shone with something Thomas couldn't immediately identify. It wasn't fear. It was indignation. That's not true, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her lips. Thomas looked at his son. Daniel was silent, his hands gripping the wheels of the overturned chair, his whole body tense. That silence wasn't normal. Daniel always talked, always complained when something bothered him. She was twisting his arm. Helena continued, her voice rising an octave. I saw it with my own eyes. I got here and she was attacking our son. The girl wiped the blood from her knee with her hand. I didn't do any of that. I was just trying to help. Help. Helena took a step toward her, her heels sinking into the grass. Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I didn't see what you were doing? Thomas felt the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. That girl was Jade, the daughter of Maria, the cook who had worked in the house for 15 years. A quiet girl who sometimes played with Daniel when her mother had to work on weekends. He had never paid much attention to her, to be honest. Just another child circulating around the property. Daniel, Thomas called, trying to keep his voice calm. What happened? The boy opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His eyes darted quickly between his father, Helena, and Jade, like an animal trapped in a snare. He's traumatized. Helena crouched beside the wheelchair, her perfectly manicured hands smoothing the boy's hair. Look at him, Thomas. Look how scared he is. Jade took a step forward. Please, Mr. Thomas, I swear that. Be quiet. Helena cut in, pointing her finger. You've already caused enough trouble. Thomas massaged his temples. He had just returned from a 3-day business trip. He was tired, hungry, and the last thing he wanted was to deal with domestic drama. But this didn't seem like a simple misunderstanding. There was something wrong with the whole scene. The tension in the air was too thick. Helena, pick up Daniel's wheelchair, he ordered. No. The answer came too quickly. Helena blinked, composing herself. I mean, we need to call a doctor first. What if he's hurt? What if this girl caused some permanent damage? He's fine, Jade murmured. I said be quiet. Helena's shout echoed through the garden, sending birds flying from the nearby trees. Thomas saw his son shrink back, his shoulders rising up to his ears. That reaction wasn't new. He had seen Daniel do that before, but had always attributed it to the boy's condition, to the sensitivity that came with paralysis in his legs. Now, watching more closely, he realized his son wasn't looking at Jade with fear. He was looking at Helena. Jade, what were you doing here in the garden with my son? Thomas asked, forcing a gentler tone. The girl took a deep breath. I saw it from the kitchen window. Mrs. Helena brought Daniel into the garden and she was doing something strange. She looked around, like she was hiding something, and then she took something out of her purse. Lies. Helena jumped to her feet. This is absurd. Thomas, you're going to believe this. This girl instead of me. Thomas noticed how Helena slipped her right hand into the pocket of her dress. A quick movement, almost imperceptible. Go on, he said to Jade, ignoring his wife. I ran down because I was afraid of what she was going to do. When I got here, she was gripping Daniel's arm tightly, and there was something shining in her other hand. I yelled at her to stop, and she pushed me. Liar. Helena screamed, but her voice carried a note of desperation now. Thomas looked again at Daniel. Son, you need to tell me the truth. Was someone hurting you? For a long moment, only the wind in the trees filled the silence. Then, slowly, Daniel nodded and pointed at Helena. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment saying what you thought and which city or country you're watching from. The truth is only beginning to come out, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Daniel's small finger trembled in the air, pointing directly at Helena. Thomas felt the world slow down. His heart beat once, hard, against his chest. Twice. On the third beat, Helena was already moving. He doesn't know what he's saying. She crouched down beside the wheelchair again, her hands cupping the boy's face with a delicacy that seemed rehearsed. My love, you're confused. It was that girl who hurt you, remember? Jade pushed you. Daniel tried to turn his face away, but Helena held him more firmly. Thomas, he's in shock, she continued, looking over her shoulder with tear-filled eyes. Children with trauma sometimes mix things up. You know how sensitive Daniel is. His mind is protecting him from the truth. Jade wiped more blood from her knee. That's not true. I saw what you had in your hand before you pushed me. You didn't see anything. Helena jumped to her feet, the mask of the concerned wife slipping for a second. Thomas saw something pass over her face, something cold and calculating, before she recomposed her expression. Thomas, I demand that you remove this girl from our property immediately. And I want Maria fired as well. What kind of mother raises a daughter who invents lies like this? My mother has nothing to do with this. Jade's voice came out louder, anger mixed with desperation. Thomas raised his hand, asking for silence. His head was spinning. Helena had been his wife for 2 years. He had met her at a charity event, had been impressed by her elegance, her manners, the way she seemed genuinely interested in Daniel when they started dating. The boy needed a maternal figure after his biological mother had abandoned them when he was only 3 years old. Helena had been perfect, devoted, attentive. Or at least that was what Thomas thought. Helena, he said, keeping his voice firm. Show me your hands. She blinked. What? Your hands. Show them to me. A muscle twitched in her jaw. Thomas, this is ridiculous. Are you really believing this? Show your hands. For a moment that lasted too long, Helena just stared at him. Then, slowly, she pulled her hands out of her pockets. They were empty, her long, well-kept fingers spreading to show clean palms. Satisfied? She asked, her voice dripping with venom disguised as hurt. Thomas looked at Jade. The girl had her lips pressed together, obvious frustration on her young face. He didn't know who to believe. Part of him wanted to trust his wife, the woman he shared a bed with, who organized perfect dinners, who smiled at him every morning. But another part, a part he tried to ignore, remembered small things. Like how Daniel always went quiet when Helena entered the room. How the boy never asked to be alone with her. How, in recent weeks, his son seemed more tired, more distant. Thomas had attributed it all to growing up, to the challenges of being a child with a disability. But what if it was something else? Daniel, he knelt in front of the wheelchair, looking his son in the eyes. I need you to be very brave right now. I need you to tell me the truth, no matter what you're afraid of. No one is going to hurt you. I promise. The boy looked at Helena over his father's shoulder. His lower lip trembled. He began, but his voice failed. It's okay, Thomas held his son's small hands. I'm here. He was trying to tell me something, Jade suddenly said. Before Mrs. Helena pushed me. He was trying to speak, but she covered his mouth. Enough. Helena practically screamed. This has gone too far. Thomas, either you remove this liar from our house right now, or I'm going to call the police and file a formal report of assault against a defenseless child. Thomas saw panic flash through Jade's eyes. A 12-year-old girl being accused of assault would have her life destroyed. Helena knew exactly what she was doing. She was using her power, her social position, to crush any resistance. And it would work. Thomas knew it would work. The word of a black girl, daughter of a maid, against the word of a rich and respected woman? There was no competition. Unless... Jade, Thomas said calmly. You said you saw something shining in her hand. What was it? I wasn't sure. It happened fast. But it looked like a needle. Helena laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. A needle? Now she's completely delusional. Why on earth would I have a needle in the garden? Thomas looked at his wife. Really looked. He saw how she kept her body rigid, how her eyes darted quickly between him, Jade, and Daniel. How her right hand, apparently relaxed at her side, had the fingers slightly curled, as if hiding something. "Empty your pockets," he ordered. "No." The word fell between them like a stone. "No." Thomas repeated, incredulous. "I will not submit to this humiliation." Helena lifted her chin. "I am your wife, Thomas. You should be defending me, not interrogating me as if I were a criminal. If you don't trust me after everything we've been through together, after everything I've sacrificed to take care of your son, then maybe we have much bigger problems in this marriage." It was a smart move. Turn the situation around, play the victim, put the blame on him. Thomas recognized the tactic because he used it in negotiations. Deflect, attack, make the other party defend themselves. But he wasn't in a boardroom. He was in the garden of his home, with his frightened son and a bleeding girl. And something inside him, something that had been dormant for a long time, finally woke up. "Empty your pockets, Helena," he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "Now." Helena didn't move. The entire garden seemed suspended in that moment, as if even the leaves on the trees had stopped swaying. Thomas could hear his own breathing, heavy and controlled. He could see the vein pulsing in Helena's neck, just above the pearl necklace he had given her on her last birthday. "You don't trust me," she finally said, her voice breaking in a way Thomas knew was calculated. "After everything." "This isn't about trust," Thomas replied. "It's about my son." Jade remained still, holding her injured knee. There was something in her eyes that Thomas recognized. It was the same expression he saw in executives when they knew they had important information but feared the consequences of revealing it. "Mr. Thomas," Jade spoke softly. "May I say something?" Helena spun toward her. "You've said enough already." "Let her speak," Thomas cut in. The girl swallowed hard. "I've been coming here on Saturdays with my mother for years. And in the last few months, I started noticing things. Small things." "What kind of things?" Thomas asked. "Daniel was always excited when he knew I was coming. We played video games," Drew talked. "But after Mrs. Helena married you, he started to change. He got quieter. Tired. Sometimes, in the middle of a conversation, he would just shut down. Like he suddenly fell asleep." A chill ran up Thomas's spine. He remembered asking the doctor about it. The neurologist had said it could be a side effect of the medication for the pain in his legs. That it was normal. That there was nothing to worry about. "Children with cerebral palsy often experience fatigue," Helena interrupted, her voice regaining its firmness. "Any competent doctor would tell you that. Thomas, for God's sake, are you really going to let a 12-year-old girl make medical diagnoses now?" "It wasn't just the naps," Jade continued, ignoring Helena. "It was the way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. Afraid. And there were other things too. Once, I went into his room to get a book he was going to lend me, and I saw Mrs. Helena hiding something under the mattress. When she saw me, she got furious. She said I didn't have permission to be there." "Because you didn't." Helena stepped forward. "You are just the cook's daughter. You have no right to wander around the house as if you owned it." The mask was falling. Thomas could see it clearly now. The elegant, controlled woman he knew was unraveling, and underneath there was something hard and cruel. "What did you hide under the mattress, Helena?" Thomas asked. "Nothing. She's making it up." "Then you won't mind if I check." Helena turned pale. You're really considering invading my private space because of a child's fantasies?" "Our space," Thomas corrected. "It's our bedroom. Our house. And above all, it's my son's home." He saw the exact moment Helena understood she was losing control. Her eyes narrowed, her posture changed. The devoted wife disappeared completely, replaced by something sharp and dangerous. "You're going to regret this," she said softly. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Thomas looked at Daniel. His son was crying silently, tears running down his face without making a sound. It was the kind of crying of someone who had learned not to make noise. Of someone who had learned that crying out loud brought consequences. How many times had Thomas failed to notice that? How many times had he come home and found Daniel with red eyes, and Helena had explained that the boy was just tired, or frustrated with physical therapy, or missing his biological mother. How many lies had he swallowed without questioning? Jade, Thomas said, keeping his eyes on Helena. When you entered the garden today, before Helena pushed you, did you see exactly where she put what she was holding? The girl nodded. She shoved it into the right pocket of her dress. I saw it. Helena crossed her arms. My pockets are empty. You already saw that. I saw your hands empty, Thomas corrected. But you could have transferred what you were holding from one place to another while pretending to obey me. It was a guess. But Thomas hadn't gotten where he was by being naive. He knew how to recognize when someone was bluffing, when someone was hiding cards. And Helena was holding her entire hand hidden. This is absurd, she said, but her voice had lost its conviction. Thomas stepped toward her slowly. Then prove it. Turn out your pockets, open your purse, show that there's nothing. It's simple. No. Why not? Because I shouldn't have to prove anything. She practically spat the words. I am your wife. Is the word of a servant worth more than mine? Jade is not a servant. She's a child. Exactly. A child who is clearly jealous of the position I occupy in this family. Jade took a step back, as if she had been slapped. Thomas saw tears well up in her eyes, but she blinked hard, refusing to let them fall. I'm not jealous, the girl said, her voice firm despite the obvious pain. I just want Daniel to be okay. And it was in that moment that Thomas truly understood. Jade wasn't there for herself. She wasn't trying to cause trouble or draw attention. She was protecting his son in the same way Maria, her mother, protected the family by serving nutritious meals, making sure the house functioned perfectly. That 12-year-old girl was doing what he, the billionaire father with all the resources in the world, had failed to do. She was paying attention. Daniel, Thomas said gently, still not taking his eyes off Helena. Son, I need you to be very brave right now. Braver than you've ever been. Can you do that for me? There was a long silence. Then, in a trembling low voice, Daniel spoke for the first time since everything had begun. She gives me injections, Dad. When you travel. She says it's so I won't feel pain, but afterward I can't wake up properly. And when I wake up, she's always so close. Saying that if I tell anyone, no one will believe me. That they'll think I'm making it up. That they'll send me away. The words fell like bombs. Thomas's world collapsed. Not gradually, not like a building being demolished floor by floor. It was instant. 1 second he had a life, a marriage, a reality. In the next, there was only rubble. Injections, he repeated, the word coming out like a strangled whisper. What kind of injections? Daniel sobbed, his entire body shaking. I don't know. She says it's medicine, but afterward I can't think straight. Everything gets foggy. Thomas felt bile rise in his throat. He turned to Helena so fast that she took a step back. Explain. Now. He's lying. Helena's voice came out shrill, desperate. Thomas, you know our son. He's sensitive, he dramatizes everything. He probably confused it with Mr. Morrison's insulin that I keep for emergencies. Mr. Morrison is not diabetic, Thomas cut in. Try again. Helena opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She was searching for another lie, another excuse. Thomas could see the gears spinning in her head. Show me what's in your pocket, he said, each word spoken with surgical precision. Last chance. There's nothing. Show it. The shout echoed through the garden, sending birds flying from the trees. Helena backed up another step, but Thomas advanced. Not threateningly, but decisively. Relentlessly. You can't force me, Helena said, but her voice trembled. I can and I will. Either you show it voluntarily, or I call the police right now and they search you. Your choice. It was a partial bluff. Thomas wasn't sure the police could do that without a warrant. But Helena didn't know that. And in the state she was in, desperate and cornered, she wouldn't think clearly enough to question it. Her eyes widened. Thomas saw the moment of decision. Saw when she realized there was no way out. Fine, Helena said, her voice suddenly calm. Too calm. You want to see it? I'll show you. She slipped her hand into the right pocket of her dress. Thomas braced himself to see a syringe, maybe a vial of medication. What he didn't expect was the speed. Helena yanked her hand out and hurled something far away, toward the bushes in the corner of the garden. The object flew through the air in a shining arc before disappearing among the leaves. "Oops," she said, a cold smile curling her lips. "How careless of me." But she had forgotten about Jade. The girl was already running before the object even landed. Her bare feet practically flew over the grass as she sprinted toward the bushes. Helena shouted something, started running after her, but Thomas blocked her path. "Get out of the way." Helena snarled, all pretense of civility gone. "No." She tried to push past him. Thomas grabbed her by the arms, not roughly, but firmly. Helena struggled, screaming obscenities he never imagined hearing from the mouth he had kissed at the altar 2 years earlier. "I found it." Jade's voice came from the bushes. She emerged holding a small leather pouch. Not the large purse Helena carried, but something smaller, about the size of a makeup case. The girl ran back, offering the object to Thomas with both hands, as if it were something sacred. Or dangerous. Thomas released Helena and took the pouch. It weighed almost nothing. With fingers that didn't tremble only through sheer control, he opened the zipper. Inside were 3 still-packaged syringes, 2 small vials of clear liquid, and a bottle of pills with no label. The silence that followed was absolute. "It's for pain," Helena tried, but her voice had no strength. "Daniel has episodes of intense pain and the doctor prescribed." "Which doctor?" Thomas asked, still staring at the vials. "Give me the name." Silence. "Give me the name of the doctor who prescribed this for my son." More silence. Thomas looked more closely at the vials. There were no labels. No pharmacy markings. Nothing identifying the contents as legitimate medication. He held one of the vials up to the light. The liquid was transparent, colorless. "Daniel," he called, his voice surprisingly steady considering he was falling apart inside. "Is this what she used on you?" The boy nodded, unable to take his eyes off the vials. Thomas slipped the pouch into his suit jacket pocket. Then, with deliberate movements, he took out his phone. "What are you doing?" Helena asked, panic finally leaking through the anger. "Calling the police." "No." "Thomas, wait, we can talk about this." "Talk." He almost laughed, but the sound that came out was hollow. "You were drugging our son." "My son. And you want to talk?" He was in pain. "I was trying to help." "Help?" Jade's voice cut in, loaded with indignation. "You were making him sleep so he wouldn't bother you. I heard you on the phone once. You said you couldn't take it anymore, having to take care of a disabled child. That it was too much work." Helena went white. "You were spying on me?" "I was walking down the hallway. You didn't even bother to close the door." Thomas dialed the emergency number, but before pressing call, he looked at Helena one last time. He needed to understand. He needed an answer that made some kind of sense, even knowing none ever would. "Why?" he asked simply. Helena let out a bitter laugh. "You really want to know? Because I didn't sign up to be a babysitter for a problem child. I married you for the money, Thomas. For the status. For the life I could have. But the package came with a boy in a wheelchair who needs constant attention, who groans at night, who needs help with everything. So yes, I found a solution. I kept him quiet. I kept him asleep. And you didn't even notice because you were too busy building your empire." The words were like knives. Every one of them true. Every one of them deserved. Thomas pressed the call button. "Emergency services, what is your situation?" The operator's voice came through the phone. "I need to report child abuse," Thomas said, his voice firm even as tears finally began to stream down his face. "And I need an ambulance. My son may have been systematically poisoned." Helena tried to run. Jade stuck her foot out in front of her. The elegant woman, the perfect wife, the devoted stepmother, fell to the ground. 3 months later, Thomas was sitting on the floor of the game room. Not on the Italian leather sofa that had cost a fortune. Not in the ergonomic armchair recommended by the interior designer. On the floor, with his back against the wall, watching Daniel and Jade play video games. "Got you!" Jade shouted, making her character defeat Daniel's on the screen. That's not fair. You distracted me. Daniel protested, but he was laughing. Really laughing, the sound filling the room in a way Thomas hadn't heard in far too long. The toxicology report had revealed heavy sedatives in Daniel's blood. Doses that, according to the doctors, were dangerously high for a child. Helena had been arrested immediately. The trial was still pending, but the evidence was overwhelming. The syringes, the vials, Daniel's testimony, even security camera recordings that Thomas hadn't even known existed, cameras Maria had discreetly installed months earlier, when she began to suspect something was wrong. The cook had never said anything. Not directly. But she had encouraged Jade to spend more time with Daniel. She had made sure to always be nearby when Helena was home. She had protected the boy in the only way she could, without risking her job, her only source of income to support her daughter. Thomas still carried guilt over that. Over how social hierarchy had made a good woman feel powerless to protect a child she saw being hurt. "Dad, are you going to play or just watch?" Daniel asked, turning his wheelchair toward him. Thomas smiled. "I'll just watch a little longer. I like seeing you two have fun." Jade looked at him over her shoulder. She was different now. Still quiet, still observant, but there was a new confidence in her eyes. As if she finally believed her voice mattered. That she mattered. "Mr. Thomas," she began, then corrected herself. "Thomas." It was an agreement they had made. No excessive formalities. She was part of the family now, not just the cook's daughter. "Yes. My mom wants to know if dinner can be half an hour later today. She's making that chocolate cake Daniel likes." "Of course. And Jade? Stop calling your mother my mom when you talk to me. She's Maria. And she doesn't need to ask permission to adjust dinner time. This is her house too." The girl smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. Thomas thought about everything that had changed. He worked from home 3 days a week now. He had promoted the vice president to take on more responsibilities. He had discovered, to his surprise, that the empire didn't collapse when he wasn't present 24 hours a day. Daniel was in therapy. Not just physical therapy for his legs, but real therapy, with a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. The sessions were hard. Some nights the boy cried himself to sleep. But other nights, like this one, he laughed. And every laugh felt like a miracle. "Dad," Daniel said, pausing the game. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you get sad? Because of Helena?" Thomas took a deep breath. He had promised never to lie to his son again. Not even white lies. "I get sad about the time we lost. Sad for not realizing what was happening. But I don't miss her, if that's what you're asking. I miss the illusion I had. The idea of a perfect family. But that was never real." "And is this real?" Daniel gestured broadly around the room. Thomas looked around. At the messy room with video game controllers scattered around. At the chocolate stains on the sofa Daniel had left last week. At Jade sitting on the floor with holes in her socks. At Maria appearing in the doorway with a tired but warm smile. "Yes," he said. "This is real." Maria came in carrying a tray with juices. She still insisted on serving, even after Thomas had told her 1,000 times it wasn't necessary. Some habits were hard to break. But now she sat with them afterward. Took part in the conversations. Laughed at the jokes. "The news said the trial starts next week," Maria commented, her accent coloring the words. Thomas nodded. "I know. They'll call us to testify." "Will Daniel have to go?" Jade asked, obvious concern in her voice. "No. The judge agreed that the recorded testimony is enough. I won't make him go through that again." There was a comfortable silence. Then Daniel spoke, his voice low but firm. "I want to go." Thomas looked at his son, surprised. "You don't have to, champ. No one is going to force you." "I know. But I want to. I want to look at her and show that I'm not afraid anymore. That she didn't win." Thomas felt his chest tighten. When had his son become so brave? Or had he always been like this, and Thomas had simply never paid attention? "Then we'll go together," he said. "Me, you, and if Jade and Maria want to go too." "I'll go," Jade said immediately. Maria nodded. "We'll go." And there, in that simple moment, Thomas understood something fundamental. Family wasn't about blood. It wasn't about status or money. It was about who stayed, who fought, who cared enough to act when it was necessary. A 12-year-old girl had seen what he, with all his resources and power, had failed to see. She hadn't had wealth, connections, or influence. She had only had courage. And that had been enough. "Jade," Thomas said. "Thank you. For everything." The girl shrugged, but he saw the blush rise in her cheeks. "I just did what was right." Many people don't. Even when they know what's right, they choose silence. You chose courage. Daniel reached out his hand and Jade took it. A simple gesture of friendship that meant everything. Thomas would keep that image. He would remember it on the hard days he knew would come. Because healing wasn't linear. Trauma didn't disappear. But with the right people by your side, it was possible to rebuild. One piece at a time. One day at a time. And sometimes, just sometimes, what is built after destruction is stronger than what existed before. If you made it this far, leave a comment sharing what you thought of this story and which city or country you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your presence here means a lot. And remember, sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they're 12 years old with scraped knees, but hearts